It's strange, really, how silence can feel louder than any sound. The hospital monitors had stopped beeping days ago, but I still hear them sometimes, faintly, in the back of my mind. That day at work, I was wearing a pale blue blouse, the one I used to call my power color. My team said I looked unstoppable. But when the world started tilting, when the paper slipped from my hand and the floor rushed up to meet me, power was the last thing I felt. When I woke up, there were tubes in my arm, the sharp scent of disinfectant in the air, and a doctor's voice saying, "We called your husband. He should be here soon." I smiled weakly. Of course, I thought. He'll come running. He didn't. Hours passed, nurses changed shifts, the sun dipped below the city skyline, and the chair beside me stayed empty. Until a different voice broke the stillness. "Liv." My brother, Ethan. He looked exhausted, scared, like he'd sprinted across states just to be there. Because he had. That moment, the shock of realizing who showed up and who didn't, changed something deep in me. And now, sitting in my glass-walled office, years later, staring at the city lights I once fainted beneath, I can feel that same ache stirring again. My phone buzzes on the desk, a name I haven't seen in months. Jason Harris, my husband. I used to believe that love meant patience. That if I just waited long enough, Jason would remember who I was. Not the woman who paid bills, cooked dinners, and stayed quiet when he came home tired, but me, the one who used to make him laugh at midnight and dream about road trips we never took. But somewhere between his promotions and my overtime shifts, we stopped being partners and became polite strangers sharing a mortgage. I remember the night before my collapse. I came home late, another 14-hour day at the marketing firm, and he was already half asleep on the couch, the TV flashing blues across his face. "Hey," I whispered, setting down my bag. He didn't look up. "You're still working that much? You don't have to prove anything, Liv." That line stung more than he knew. Because the truth was, I wasn't working to prove myself to the office. I was trying to prove something to us. That I was enough. That our life still meant something. He drifted back to sleep before I even reached the bedroom. The next morning, I skipped breakfast. My hands were shaking as I buttoned that blue blouse, the one he'd once called his favorite. I told myself I was fine. Everyone does that before they break. By noon, my vision blurred during a meeting. My assistant's voice faded. The room swayed. And then, darkness. When I woke up in the hospital, it was Ethan sitting beside me. My younger brother, the one I hadn't spoken to properly in 2 years after a family argument about Jason. He just held my hand, eyes wet, voice trembling. "I told him you were pushing too hard, Liv." I wanted to say something back, something brave or forgiving, but all that came out was a whisper. "They called him Ethan, they called Jason." He looked away. I didn't need his answer. I already knew. The next morning, Ethan brought me my mother's silver locket, the one she wore every day before she passed. Inside was a small folded note she'd left for me years ago. "When people stop showing up, don't chase them. Stand up, even if your legs shake." I remember tracing the edge of that locket, my chest aching. That was the moment I stopped waiting to be chosen. I decided I'd choose myself. Recovery was quieter than I expected. No dramatic goodbyes, no tears, just the steady hum of machines, the scent of hospital soap, and the silence that follows when you finally stop pretending you're okay. Ethan stayed with me for a week after I was discharged. He cooked, made me laugh, and didn't ask too many questions. That was his way. He never demanded I talk. He just made it safe to. When I told him I wanted to leave Jason, he didn't react with shock. He just nodded, like he'd known it all along. "Then let's get you somewhere new," he said. We found a tiny one-bedroom apartment near downtown Chicago. Nothing fancy, but it had sunlight, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. The first few weeks were messy. Bills, boxes, sleepless nights. I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder if I'd made a mistake. But then I'd touch Mom's locket and hear her words echoing. "Stand up, even if your legs shake." So I stood. I left my corporate job and started freelancing small marketing gigs, social campaigns, brand work for local businesses. Money was tight, but freedom felt like oxygen. Then one day, I met Margaret Doyle, the creative director of a startup agency. She was sharp, warm, and everything I aspired to be. She looked through my portfolio and said, "You've got edge, Liv. You just don't know it yet." She became my mentor, the kind of woman who didn't just teach, she believed. Under her guidance, I built something of my own. Late nights blurred into early mornings, coffee cups stacked beside my laptop. There were setbacks, failed pitches, clients ghosting, weeks I couldn't pay rent, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of failure. I was building. 6 months later, I landed a major client, a wellness brand that wanted authenticity over gloss. My campaign went viral. Within a year, I registered my own agency, Olivia Harris Creative. Ethan was there the day I signed the papers. He brought champagne and 2 mismatched glasses. We toasted on my balcony, laughing at how the city lights made our cheap drink look expensive. Online, I kept my life private. No big announcements, no grand reveals. Jason and my old in-laws still followed me, so I posted little: a cup of coffee, a quote, a sunrise. Nothing that showed the empire quietly rising behind those photos. Some nights, I'd stand by my window and whisper, "You didn't come when I fell, but you'll see me when I rise." And slowly, everything I'd lost, confidence, purpose, peace, began returning. Only this time, it belonged entirely to me. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday, the kind of day you never expect to change your life. My agency had just celebrated signing a partnership with a national wellness brand, the same kind that used to reject my proposals years ago. The office smelled faintly of lavender and coffee, the soft hum of productivity filling the air. I was reviewing campaign drafts when my assistant, Mia, knocked gently on the glass wall of my office. "There's a man and a woman here to see you," she said, hesitating. "They said they're family." For a second, my chest tightened. I hadn't heard that word in a long time. When I stepped into the lobby, I froze. Jason was standing there, older, leaner, but still carrying that same effortless confidence that used to make me feel small. Beside him stood his sister, Caroline, clutching her designer purse like a shield. "Olivia," he breathed, eyes scanning me as if trying to reconcile the woman in front of him with the one he'd once left behind.
"Wow.
"You look different." "I am," I said simply. Caroline offered a brittle smile. "We didn't know how to reach you." "Jason, well, he's been meaning to." "Spare me," I said softly. "Why are you here?" Jason exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I lost my job a few months ago. We had some setbacks. I remembered you worked in marketing, and I thought maybe you'd know someone hiring." The words hit like slow thunder. After everything, this was why he came. I didn't speak right away. Instead, I walked to the large glass window behind my desk. From here, the skyline of Chicago glittered. Steel, glass, light. The same city where I'd once collapsed, now standing as my witness. "You know," I said finally, "the last time I was lying in a hospital bed, the doctors called you." He flinched. Caroline shifted uncomfortably. "They said, 'Your husband's on the list, he'll be here soon.'" I waited and waited, but you never came. I turned to face him. "Ethan did. The brother you said was too emotional for his own good. He flew halfway across the country just to hold my hand." Jason's jaw tightened. "Liv, I made a mistake." "No," I interrupted, my voice steady. "You made a choice." Silence stretched between us, the kind of silence that strips everything bare. Then I smiled, calm, almost kind. "You asked if I knew someone hiring?" He nodded, cautious. "I do," I said, walking back toward him. "Me." His eyes flickered with confusion. I gestured around the office. The sleek design, the company logo etched in glass, Olivia Harris Creative. His face drained of color. "You own this?"
Yes.
"And every person here works harder, cares deeper, and shows up when it matters, qualities you might remember from your vows." Caroline's lips parted, speechless. Jason's mouth opened, then closed again. I watched them take it in. The walls lined with campaign awards, the framed press clipping that read, the woman who redefined authentic marketing. Jason whispered. I didn't know. Of course not, I said gently. You never ask. For a moment, pity flickered in me. Not for him, but for the man he could have been. I'll help you, I said after a long pause. But not like before. If you want a job here, you'll earn it like everyone else. No titles, no exceptions. He stared at me, stunned. You'd actually after everything. I'm not doing it for you, I said softly. I'm doing it because I don't carry hate anymore. It's too heavy. The lobby was silent except for the faint buzz of city life beyond the glass. As they left, I saw Ethan waiting by the elevator, arms crossed, a small, proud smile on his face. When our eyes met, he mouthed, "Told you you'd rise." And in that moment, I realized forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was the final proof of strength. The next morning, my office was unusually quiet. The kind of silence that feels like aftermath, heavy but freeing. I sat by the window with my coffee, the city still waking below me, and replayed the conversation with Jason in my head. There was no bitterness left, only clarity. For years, I'd mistaken endurance for love. I thought holding on made me loyal, but it only made me smaller. Now I understood something different. Letting go was the real act of love for myself. Later that day, Jason sent an email. His tone was formal, almost humble. He thanked me for the opportunity to start again and admitted he'd forgotten what humility felt like. Reading it, I didn't feel triumph, just peace. I replied simply, show up early, work hard, be kind. That's all I ask. He wasn't the only one who reached out. Caroline called a week later, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. She said she'd been thinking about how she used to gossip about my career obsession at family dinners and that maybe she was jealous. I didn't rub it in. I just said, it's never too late to build something that's yours. Then there was Ethan. He'd been by my side through everything, but he still carried guilt for not staying in touch sooner. One night over takeout, he said softly, I should have called you more after Mom died. Maybe things wouldn't have gone this far. I looked at him, the man who dropped everything to come to that hospital room. Ethan, I said, you did show up. That's all that mattered. He smiled, that small, lopsided grin that always made me feel 10 years younger. In the weeks that followed, I decided to create something new, a program under my agency called The Second Rise. It offered free branding and marketing help to women rebuilding their lives after illness, divorce, or burnout. Women like me. When I announced it internally, my team stood and clapped. I almost cried right there, but I just pressed the silver locket against my palm and whispered, for you, Mom. One of the first applicants for The Second Rise was a woman whose story mirrored my own. Long marriage, invisible pain, quiet collapse. As I read her application, I felt that old ache, but this time it didn't hurt. It healed. I realized that every condition I gave others, accountability, honesty, effort, were the same ones I'd once needed to give myself. So I made a promise. I'd forgive, but never forget the lessons. I'd help, but never at the cost of my peace. I'd love again, but never lose myself in the process. And for those who had hurt me, including Jason, I'd offer a path, not a pass. Because healing others without losing your boundaries, that's real power. As I turned off the office lights that evening, I caught my reflection in the glass, the faint shimmer of my mother's locket at my neck, the steady calm in my own eyes. I finally saw the woman I was always meant to be. It's been 2 years since that day in the hospital, the day my heart and my body both gave out. Back then, I thought that collapse was the end. Now I know it was the beginning. Life has quieted in the best way. Jason works at my agency now, not under me but with me. He's humble, focused, and for once, present. There are still pieces of us that don't fit, and that's okay. Some stories aren't meant to be rewritten, only understood. Caroline volunteers with The Second Rise, helping women restart their careers. She sends me photos of every workshop. In each one, she's smiling like someone who finally found meaning. And Ethan, my anchor, he's moved back to Chicago permanently. He jokes that I owe him half my company since he rescued the founder. But between his teasing and his warmth, I know he's proud. We both carry Mom's locket in spirit now, her words guiding us quietly, like a compass pointing home. Every morning, I still touch the locket before I leave for work. The metal's worn smooth from my fingers, the inscription inside faded, but never forgotten. Stand up, even if your legs shake. Those words carried me through boardrooms, sleepless nights, and heartbreaks. They reminded me that being strong doesn't mean being unbreakable. It means rebuilding again and again, even when your hands still tremble. Sometimes I visit the park near my old office, the one where I used to eat lunch alone, pretending everything was fine. I watch the people rushing past, their phones buzzing, their faces tired. I want to tell them what I learned the hard way, that it's okay to fall. It's okay to rest, but never, ever forget to rise. As I stand there, the autumn wind lifting my hair, I close my eyes and let the city hum around me, the same city where I once collapsed, now cradling the woman who stood back up. In the end, no one saved me. Not the doctors. Not my husband. Just me and the quiet decision to try one more time. And maybe that's all healing really is. Not forgetting the pain, but owning it, transforming it, wearing it like armor made of light. Because when I collapsed, they thought I'd fallen. But really, I was just getting ready to rise.